job. And I'm going to hand over to Malcolm now. Malcolm and I have worked for many years. He's an integral part of the team at Goodfoot. Got a lot of experience, got a lot of passion in delivering for a number of our clients as well. Got a big interest in this whole topic around assessing potential, and he's keen to share some of this with you today. So over to you, Malcolm.
Thank you, Jeremy. So I think there's a couple more people trying to get in to our session. So
yes.
Okay, so thank you everybody for joining us today. As I say, if you want to ask any questions, and you put those on chat, and Jeremy will see things coming through. Occasionally we'll ask for comments as to what you think about different things and give an opportunity to share what people are thinking. So this is me. I know some people start off with a bit of spot the difference between what I look like now and what that photograph does. I haven't got a lot of time today, so I'll give you the answer. I've got a different pair of glasses on. So, but that's my pre-lockdown look, of course. My background is very much retail, Safeway, big career within HR there, done interims with Tesco, with the Cooperative Group, and also acted as an industrial fellow at the University of Surrey, trying to get them to hone their curriculum more towards the sorts of people that perhaps sort of industry wanted. And I guess throughout all of that time, I've just felt that actually we need to apply the same processes to our people as we do to, if you like, to our products. You know, if you're putting a product on a shelf, you'd want to say, well, what's its performance going to be and what's its long-term potential? And in the same way, you know, we should be treating our human resources with that same sort of rigor, if you like. So few little bits to go through today. Just talk about the business benefits. That's important, because we, quite often, those of you that are in HR, need to sell these sorts of things into the business. So it's very important that it's business focused. The things to do it right, touch upon the importance of competencies, which I guess a number of you will be familiar with anyway. A little bit about performance versus potential, and then a couple of models, the 3P model and the 9-box model. Clearly, we can't go into all the detail on everything, but it's about sort of getting that flavour, I guess. So if we just start off by just saying, okay, what is potential? Yeah. So the predicted future performance in a bigger role, if given the appropriate development and support. So I'd just like to ask you, those that can get access to chat, if you just want to put up a couple of comments in terms of what do you see as the benefits of the business if you're able to, predict other people's potential in the future. Maybe just a couple of comments for Jeremy to look at.
Great, we've got some comments coming in from Julia, retention, from Dave, succession planning, Kristen, succession, Julia, higher self-esteem. So some good ones coming in there.
Okay.
Keeping employees engaged. Natalie, motivation.
Okay. That's interesting, because there's a mix of the two. One is obviously the benefits for the business, then if you like, then the benefits for the individual, that if they're motivated and they've got esteem and so on, will actually bring through to the business. So thank you for that. So we've just got a few up here. Yeah. Benefits of business: define our pool of talent, retain the pool of talent, speed up the development of talent, grow talent, reduce the cost of external hires. And that actually links back also to motivation, doesn't it? Because in addition to the cost of actually hiring people, it does tend to demotivate people if they feel that their job has gone to somebody from outside. And then target limited training budgets for maximum return. And certainly if you've ever worked with Goodfoot, you'll know that most companies have limited training budgets, but they want to make sure that they get the most out of them. Then on the other side, about dealing with things in times of uncertainty, which is now, isn't it? Meet business goals, despite changes in people. Deal with challenging times, maintain a seamless business, and then this help future-proof the business, and then obviously keep, you know, the right people for the, you know, for the future. So lots of benefits and lots of reasons why we might be able to sell this into, you know, our colleagues, you know, at sort of board level or wherever, in order, you know, to be able to actually start to assess potential. Friend of ours, yeah, heard quite a number of people recently talking about, you know, oh, it's not going well, we can't do things, what are we going to do for the future? You know, and rather than actually looking forward to the future, they're burying themselves in the present. So we get into our friend sort of Fraser here. Yeah. So what we need to say, although we can't go into a great deal of detail, is that it clearly isn't a standalone process. Yeah, it needs to link with recruitment selection, it needs to link with retention, our training development, and all the other performance management things that are going on. And I think one of the delegates mentioned also in terms linking into things like succession planning as well. So it isn't a standalone process. It needs to link with all of the other activities which are taking place. Now, these are all things which I've picked up in my role as a consultant in terms of organisations getting it wrong. So this, if you like, is let's just share the banana skins. Allow human capital roadblocks. So, you know, people aren't interested in developing the potential of their people and are actually blocking the development of people. Keeping ownership away from the business and potentially communicating wrong messages. Creating the culture of fear and suspicion, self-preservation, and this is always a bit tricky when you go in as an independent, allowing the wrong people to make the decisions. Yeah, my experience is that if people are allowed to predict potential, they normally predict somebody who's in their own image, because actually they must be doing things right. So therefore, whoever's coming through must be the person that's actually going to succeed them. Make decisions that won't happen. You know, clearly we need to take into account the resources that we've got available as a business, and then look at departments in isolation. Are there people in other departments who potentially have got potential to grow elsewhere within the business? I'm maybe not a great example, but I started my career within, if you like, the frontline operation, store management, operations management, and so on, and they for whatever reason, developed me and moved me into the HR side. And I'm sure that I actually grew more because I was moved into a department which was better fit into my skills. Do it once and never go back, and, you know, wait too long to start. So, but we don't need to panic. Yeah, there are things that we can do in order to make sure that we actually, you know, actually do it right. Yeah, and we're saying here, you know, link to the business plan. Develop an annual calendar of events, things that people are probably involved in anyway, individual performance reviews, on and off the job development, and create those opportunities for, you know, continuous professional development. And then linked to that are, you know, the other things we need to do. Start now. It is a great time now to start to look at the potential in the business. We know that, you know, despite the fact that the economy is, let's say, on a downturn and a lot of people are going to be losing jobs, those people with the best potential will still going to be in high demand. So it's far better to start now and try and keep those people in your business as part of succession planning, retention, than, you know, to let them go elsewhere.
Yeah. I want to get some interest, see if there's any comments from any of the attendees this morning on around that, Malcolm.
Yeah. Anything coming there, Jeremy?
Yeah. No.
Okay.
Can everybody hear me?
Yeah. So focus on the company needs and not the personalities. Link to up-to-date HR and have up-to-date job descriptions and role profiles, which are, generally sort of competency-based. So these are the things we need to do to actually get it right, to actually make things work for us. This is all background stuff, and I guess a lot of you that are tuned in today, these are things that you'll be working on anyway. They're part of our job within the sort of HR and sort of training arena. So these are our general steps to success. Yeah, identify the future. What is it that the future looks like? Yeah, who are we looking for? What sort of people are we looking for? Identify the critical job roles that are going to deliver that future. And then the competencies. And I'm going to touch upon competencies in a little bit more detail to deliver the future.
That's good. I've got a comment coming actually, Malcolm, from Julia. So thanks, Julia. She's put, in our business, our needs are changing so frequently, that can be a full-time role, keeping up with everything. Thanks.
Yeah, I think that is a fair comment. I guess the important thing is to ensure that everybody's on the same page. That's sometimes quite difficult, I know, within HR, but yeah, things keep moving, they keep moving forward. Identify the competencies and those with the talent that are going to drive the future. And then obviously implement the development strategies, and as we have to do, continually monitor, evaluate and update. So just going back to competencies, I'm sure most people are aware of what they are, but essentially, it's rather than the what we do, it's the how we do it. So we can have the greatest salesperson in the world, selling more than anybody else in terms of their, the quantity of what they sell. But actually, we also want to know how they're doing it. If they're burning bridges with customers that we can't go back to, if they're upsetting people, if they're not communicating well, if they are the reason why lots of other colleagues are leaving and so on. So it's all about the behaviours behind the scenes, those drivers and those sort of motivators. And this is just a very typical competency framework. This one happens to be focused on 4 areas: achievement, then moving up personal effectiveness, working across the business, and understanding the business. So that's a fairly sort of typical one, and I guess most of you that are involved in competencies will have some of those or something similar on their screen. But I just thought it would be worth just to ask, just here, what are the competencies that you see will actually future-proof your business? What do you see as the important ones going forward? So just we'll put something in chat there for Jeremy. That would be useful. Thank you.
From Natalie, we've got forward thinking. Julia, integrity. From Dave, willingness to change.
Yes.
So thank you for those so far. From Adam, learnability. From Dave and flex. Learning on the fly.
Okay.
From Julia. So some real varied ones there, which is great.
Yeah. And clearly, depending upon the markets that we're in, depending on the size of the business, depending upon the level that people are operating at, the different organisations will have different competencies they see as being the most important.
That's right. Yeah, and we've got another one from Phil, Malcolm. Confidence to make decisions. Yeah,
I certainly wouldn't disagree with that one either.
No. Humility from Julia. So yeah, some fantastic ones from you. Thank you.
Yeah, and it boils down a little bit as well to something they call the criterion problem. Yeah, and it actually starts with who we recruit and why we recruit them and what skills are we looking for. How do we develop those skills as people go through? You know, what are the critical success factors, if you like? So, okay, so yeah, thank you for that list. As you know, in addition to actually coming up with the competencies, we normally then give them descriptors for different levels. So this happens to be the thinking competency. And you'll see there the difference between middle managers and executive level managers. And once you get those descriptors, it becomes a lot easier for us to determine whether or not people are actually meeting what we need them to meet. So rather than just saying to somebody, well, you've got to be a good thinker, well, what does that actually mean? Yeah, where does it actually go? So if you look at the executive level, visions the future, develops a strategy to realize the vision, thinks about the business issues in broad terms, and critically reviews current activity. Yeah, so I just sort of put up these couple of characters for us just to get a view on their thinking ability. And if we look at our friend Captain Mannering there, he would probably tell you that he was very competent. He would probably tell you he was a great thinker and he had nothing else to actually do. But you can probably see why, maybe they didn't achieve as much as they might have done. Yeah, when you have someone like that, running the show. So all of the stuff that we've talked about so far is very much sort of in sort of background, just setting the scene for where we need to be, what's important, and so on. And this then brings us on to the 3P model. So we're really now getting into the bits about assessing potential. Yeah, performance, potential, and preference. And this is probably one of the easiest models for people to sort of take on board. Yeah, and it's this idea that actually how well we do in our job is performance overlapping with our performance and our potential, but also our preference. So preference is about actually what is it that the person wants to do. So they may have a really high level of performance, they may have a really high level of potential, but for whatever reason, their preference is that they actually don't want to go anywhere. Yeah. So one of the things that we need to do before we start investing time and effort in people is to understand what their preferences are. So, in this case, very much about, are they actually interested in promotion? Would they relocate? Would they be happy to change function? Because if they're not, then actually, whilst we still want to motivate them to, be high performers, potentially we don't need to put as much effort into their development and future needs and so on and so forth. Yeah. Now, clearly, all of that about are they interested in promotion, relocate, happy to change function, and so on, comes around from both formal and informal intervention. So it's those sort of casual chat you're having with people where sometimes they'll actually say, well, I'm really happy in the job I'm in, I don't really want to go any further. But obviously linked into that, you've got the more formal assessment processes, not normally some sort of personal development review. So performance and potential then become, if people have the preference to want to get on, is then something that becomes very important.
Okay, we've just got a comment there, Malcolm, from Julia, who thinks it's important as HR leaders we promote the value of progressing upwards as well as laterally.
Yes, I think that's a very good point. Yeah, and I think in some organisations where people can see a route to and through to the top, then certainly we need to encourage them to take those steps. I think this bit about moving laterally is also quite interesting because a lot of organisations have now got flatter structures. So in some cases, you know, your if you like next step might be a sideways move rather than upwards move. And actually, sometimes in HR, we're the people that have actually got to sell that into people. So, but yeah, I agree that it is important to give people the opportunity to progress upwards and also see the reasons why they should be looking to progress upwards. Thank you for that. So this is on the sort of performance side of things, because clearly most people that have got potential are also performing well. So, yeah, normally we, you know, within our HR processes, we will be seeing how people perform against the competency framework. So, are they meeting the competency descriptors that are important to their job, or are they not? Yeah. If not, where are they falling down, and what do they need to do? Yeah. Obviously, secondly, are they progressing against their personal development objectives? What is it that we're asking them to do? And then, you know, the other one, which is clearly very, very important, is how are you performing against your business goals? You know, those SMART objectives which we get set, both the short, the medium, and the long-term goals. So what are people actually doing? Yeah, and you know, taking the point I think that Julia made before as well, it's actually important, you know, that people are very, very open and honest in terms of how people are performing. In one of the companies I was in, they used to give people basically an A, B, C, or a D against each of these. So, you know, the people that we were most interested in were, they used to call batteries because they were, you know, the triple A's. They're doing well for competencies, doing well against their development objectives, and then also against their business goals. If we then look at this, yeah, and, you know, I would just say, well, okay, which of those people, if any, are performing well? You know, I don't even want to put a little chat into Jeremy whilst I just put on my Hodges hat just for a minute or two. Yeah. So are any of those people doing well? Any of those people performing? Any of those people likely to be able to perform? Anything coming in there, Jeremy?
No, not yet.
Okay. So presumably we're saying that we don't think that any of these people are performing well. So you wouldn't want any of them in your team. So let us just
got a comment from Phil. Thanks, Phil. Wilson, will to challenge above.
Okay, that's a good, interesting point. Yeah, yeah. So do you think that's wise, sir? Okay. So I would suggest that Private Walker is actually performing quite well, but not in the job that he's actually taken on to do within the team, as it were.
Yeah, yeah. Dave commented, I don't think I'd like to be going over the top with any of them. And Phil's put respectfully, obviously.
Okay. Yeah. So, you know, this is going back to that, you know, performance against standards. So that's one thing we need to look at. And then the other bit we need to look at is potential. Yeah. And I'm well aware from, you know, my time within HR, within some fairly large organizations and small organizations, that there are lots and lots of tests and lots of exercises that people can do in order to sort of measure potential. When I was involved at Safeway, they were one of the first organizations to bring across a lot of these sort of American ideas of putting people into assessment centers and putting them into all sorts of tests and activities and so on, in order to be able to, you know, measure that potential. And clearly that is a route that actually people can take. But, you know, the reality is that people are victims of repetitive behavior. We tend to do 85% of the things we normally do every day in the same way. And also the reality is that if we observe people in the workplace and look for, if you like, those indicators in the workplace, that can actually help us to identify potential without necessarily going down the, you know, the expensive route of assessment centres and various other tests and so on. I'm not saying don't use those. I'm saying use them carefully and maybe use them on the right people once you've, you know, got more of a feeling of those people that are, you know, likely to fit. Yeah, but research tells us that people that are open-minded, take personal accountability, and are willing to learn from past successes and failures tend to be the people that have potential. And we know that. Now, sort of underpinning some of this is some of the things that people might be aware of, such as emotional intelligence and propensity to be able to take responsibility, being very self-aware of our own impact on others and so on. But this actually leads to a series of questions. And these are questions that you can ask current managers, and maybe also people who are just below that are seeking to get their sort of first managerial bit. Yeah. So do they receive feedback in a positive and constructive way? Does their behavior change based on feedback? And is there a track record of learning from mistakes and also from learning from successes? Do they seek out new types of information to improve their work group or themselves? And then the last group here, yeah. Have they been faced with the need to learn a new skill in the recent past? And if they were they successful in learning and demonstrating the new skill? And then the last question, do they develop themselves? We know that people who have potential take more responsibility for their own development. And you'll see there, you know, that question which actually says, you know, if the answer to any of these questions is no, then it is likely that they do not have high potential. Now, I would put a caveat on that and say, you know, if the answer to that question is no, you need to ask why that is no. And is there something that, you know, is getting in the way of that happening, or is it, you know, just it's a trait, as it were, that they're not, you know, focusing on things. So, and then for managers, so these are people that have already got people responsibility. Yeah, 4 other questions. Do they develop others? Again, we know that people who are good in their job and have potential are happy to share that experience with others and bring other people through. So which takes you on to the next bit, which is, do they take an active interest in seeing direct reports realize their full potential? Is there a track record of growing leaders from within their group? And then, are there people performing generally better when compared to other comparable groups within the organization? And again, if the answer to any of these is no, then it's also likely to indicate that they don't have, you know, particularly high potential. So there's a series of questions there that you can actually ask. There are a series of questions that you can build into assessment processes, into the competency framework, or even into, you know, the annual or quarterly review process that people do, yeah, which actually starts you to be able to say, okay, have these people got, you know, have they actually got potential? Okay, Jeremy, anything come in recently?
No, not as yet, no. Hopefully that question. I've got a question from Julia. How much of this do you think is dependent on the training the manager received?
I think that's a good question. I think some of it is about direction from their peers. I think it also, to an extent, has some link to company culture. So it's a culture very much about we develop people, we grow people, we help people to realise their potential. So yes, those building blocks also need to be in place. And I guess that then takes us back to, occasionally you're going to say, okay, well, the answer to that is no. But why is it no? Is there something within the organisation that's stopping it from happening? But we do know, just going to the bottom question there, that people with potential normally have their people performing at a higher rate when compared to comparable groups over time. Because certainly one of the things that we tend to do with people with potential is put them in difficult situations. So they may take over a team that isn't performing. So you've got to decide, when am I going to ask that question? How long am I going to give them in order to actually make things better? So this moves us to a very simple 9-box model. And one of the things that everybody loves to do is to stick people in a box. Give them a label, and then once we give them a label, we know what we need to do with those people. So clearly this does actually come with a health warning, that actually from time to time people will move. They will move boxes. And I guess going back to what Julie was saying before, that might depend upon how they are managed and how they're looked after. As we know, motivation comes from within, but it's got to come externally initially from other people. So the business has got to be motivating people. It's got to want people to actually sort of move forward. One of the things which quite often happens is that those people with high potential, who are, if you like, exceeding performance, so they're in that top talent box, will actually move down into the next box down. And some of that is partly because they're not actually getting, the level of support that they need. They don't feel as though they're being appreciated. So a lot of that comes from, the organisation and the motivation side of things. And in terms of percentages, it's actually difficult to put percentages on it. But in most cases, you will not have, more than 10% of your people in that top, that's if you're lucky, in that top talent arena. And therefore, the people that you're actually going to put the work into. If I can move you over to the other side, to the misplaced diamond. Now that's a very interesting category, and this is the idea that we shouldn't be writing people off. It may well be that actually, they have considerable potential and could also perform very, very well, but potentially they're in the wrong department, in the wrong team, maybe with the wrong line manager, and that we haven't actually done anything to do anything about those, about that group. Now, what quite often happens with those misplaced diamonds is that they'll go and find their route elsewhere. But clearly there are another group of people that if we were able to move them into, a particular place, might do a better job. So I'm going to come back to my favourite team now, and just ask you. This is, and I'll put on my hat, if I may, again, because this is, a question master's hat today. If there's anybody in that group that you feel is a misplaced diamond. So in other words, if they were given the opportunity to take more responsibility, maybe given the opportunity to be in charge, given some coaching, given some support, whether they could actually do a better job. So just in the chat there, if anybody'd like to just have a stab, it's only a little bit of fun as to, is there anyone there that you think could do a much better job if they were directed in a better way and were told, and coached properly?
So got one from Natalie. We're doomed.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Natalie. Okay.
From Dave Wilson. Clearly can't think for himself. Thanks, Dave.
Any others?
No.
Okay. So, because it is an interesting group. Now, this is just my own personal opinion. I haven't
Yeah. I've
tested.
got,
Yeah.
got one from Kristen. Sergeant Wilson.
Okay. Yeah.
Kristen.
Because he's quite interesting, isn't he? In that he's, if you like, the number 2 both in the bank to Mannering and also number 2 in the platoon, as it were. Yeah. So, okay. I mean, again, this is more a little bit of fun than anything, but I'm just suggesting those 2. Yeah. So certainly, if we look at Fraser, he has a lot of potential, but he uses that potential at a low level rather than stepping up. And Walker clearly has a lot of initiative. Whether that could actually be used for the benefit of the platoon remains to be seen. So let us just move on with that 9-box model, yeah, and talk about the sorts of things we need to be giving some, giving our thoughts to. So we start off with the low potential and below performance. They're probably the people that we need to be looking to exit the business, and certainly one of the things, as you're probably aware, in these particularly difficult economic times, is that organisations need to be looking at, if they are going to be making redundancies, the reasons for redundancies. Yeah, and it is perfectly acceptable, as you're probably aware, to actually look at people's potential, look at their current job performance, but also to look at whether or not they are the people you want for the future. It's quite acceptable to say, well, actually, we need a different sort of person in the future, and these people actually don't fit that as part of the criteria. So potentially those people are going to be exiting the business. If they're still in the business, then they need to be very, very closely managed, set the objectives and so on and so forth. And the opposite side of that is that group of people, that we want to prepare for the future, up in the top sort of right-hand corner as we look at it. And then that other group that are in the green, they need to understand where they fit and what it is that they're bringing to the business. So, I mean, one of the words that isn't on there, which probably needs to be for all of them, as well as the stretch and develop, is that motivate. Yeah. And they need to understand why it is that potentially they're not in that top group of top talent, and what are the things they can do in order to move there. Yeah, those people in the blue tend to be the people that we don't believe will ever actually grow any more than in what they're actually doing. But you've got functional experts there. Yeah, they are very much the backbone of the business, and it's important that we keep those people happy and they understand that the backbone of the business. And the group that are sort of meeting performance but haven't got potential, we need to challenge them to raise that. So that gives us a model to work to. Jeremy?
Yeah, I've just had a comment. Well, firstly from Kristen on the previous slide. With Sergeant Wilson, do you think there would be the risk area with key achievers?
Sorry, do I?
Yeah, for the previous slide, prior to the 9-box with the Sergeant Wilson, do you think there would be could be a key risk area with key achievers?
I'm not sure that I understand that question, Jeremy.
Yeah, that's okay. Well, it was a couple of slides ago, so I was just referring back. So
right,
I've just had from Dave. I like the 9-box model. Would allow us to compare and contrast the whole team and move them about over time. Worth literally plotting out the whole team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, from Julia. It would be good for those in blue, have a great potential, but are being mismanaged, perhaps.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment. We do need to look at why people are scoring or getting no on those sort of particular questions. And are they in the wrong team or in the right team and with the wrong managers, that sort of thing. Yeah,
that's right. And Dave's put key achievers ? And then that's been followed up with Kristen. Do you think it would be a risk area for key achievers?
So in terms of which one are we looking at here? Sorry, Jeremy, this one.
Well, that's on the the 9 box,
Yeah.
with the key achievers. Do you think it would be a risk area for key achievers?
For them to be stretched.
Yeah, that's just the that's the comment.
Yeah, I think that could be the case. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Kristen, do you think it would be? Yeah, sorry, she's put, are key achievers a risk area?
Not to the business, because obviously they are achieving, and they're achieving on a regular basis. I think one of the issues that we have to face is if we are putting a lot of work into just a small group of people, because they are seen as the future of the business and so on. We're trying to future-proof the business. What are we doing for everybody else? And I think there is a risk in all of these, these sort of models, that if you're not careful, you leave some people behind. And I think the reality is the only group you might leave behind, that group down there, which are those that we believe we need to be exiting. Yeah, because obviously we've tried everything else to get those people, doing a good job for us. I think the other thing I would say, John, I'm sure you're aware of this, is, we need to be careful how we share messages with people, in terms of, we don't want to put a label on somebody and then suddenly actually I'm never going to be promoted, so I might as well give up. So there's always that challenge that, we need to actually face up to. Okay, so these are things which I'm sure that you will be involved with it to a greater or lesser extent. But I've deliberately put the mentoring and being mentored in the top corner there, because we know that people that have potential really do respond to mentoring, but also they respond to being a mentor. Yeah. As one of the things that actually helps them to grow, because they do like working with other people. Coaching and being coached, buddying up with somebody across the business, secondments, volunteering, stepping up as a standing cover. I know earlier on somebody was talking about, one of the benefits is this works very well with succession planning. So clearly, one of the things that you can do within the succession plan is have the person as the emergency stand-in for holidays and that sort of thing. So it gives them that opportunity. Project work, stepping up for particular key activities, academic study, and then the opportunity to do it, the external and the internal courses. Quite often, people that have potential do actually thrive much more when they get an opportunity to go on an external course, when they're meeting with other people from other organisations, because they're then picking up lots more ideas and skills which they're bringing back into the business, rather than just recycling what's already within the business itself. And then this is all part of ensuring that we future-proof the business, of which clearly assessing that potential is actually very, very important. The business plan, and you've probably picked up all the way through this that I'm very, very pragmatic, and that everything that I did within HR was very much linked back to the business plan. Identify and support talent, and have a pool of people that you're supporting, the appraisal process, the role profiles, a competency framework which reflects what we want in the future. Training policy and budget. That's, Jeremy will tell you, that's very important.
Yes.
Succession planning, a CPD culture. Encourage people to take responsibility for their own development. And we certainly know, as we've said before, people that have potential, given the opportunity, will put that in place. Make sure we retain the talent, and that the recruitment process reflects the future needs of the business, if we do need to bring other people in, and effective outplacement for those people that potentially we need to move on. So we're keeping the people that we need within the business for that length of time. So all of that is, all of those are sort of deliberately the tiles, all the building blocks that go under everything else we've talked about today. We've actually gone through an awful lot fairly quickly, and clearly there's a lot more detail that we can bring to these various bits and pieces. So that's the Good Foot part of the webinar series, part of us trying to provide to our friends and colleagues out in the workplace there some business critical training, some ideas that we can take forward. In terms of next steps, we will be sending you the slides, and a recording of today, so that you've actually got that to look at and pick out the bits that are relevant to you, and maybe even share it with colleagues where we're trying to get things to go. And clearly as a business, we would really welcome that opportunity to move forward with having some sort of consultation about how we can provide as Good Foot some business critical support to you, at this time. And on that note, I'd like to thank you for participation. I'll pass you back to Jeremy to take questions. And
yeah, thank you, Malcolm, and thanks everybody for their time. And just wondering, has anybody got any questions to fire at Malcolm following the session? And that, any thoughts, any advice, or any any pointers that might help going forward? And that we'll be delighted to chat further now. So what we can do is, if the session's ended, I'll stop the recording. But if anybody would like to stay on and just have a chat, we can put the videos on for 5-10 minutes. That often works well in an informal environment. So more than happy to do that. So thank you, Kristen, for your comment. Really useful session. And excellent from Phil. Thank you, Phil, and appreciate everyone giving their time up this morning. It's been hugely appreciated. And Rasto, thanks, Rasto. Good to see you. And Alexandra, thank you. And I hope everyone has a great rest of the day, and that's been hugely appreciated. And we look forward to catching up. As Malcolm mentioned, we will over the next couple of days just send a copy of the slides and the recording for you to share, to refer back to, and use internally within the organisation. So please do let us know. Adam, thank you. Glad you enjoyed it. No questions. So I think that's pretty much everyone. So I'm going to just end the recording now, but we'll remain on, and then we can chat.